Welcome to our third lesson on grace. Today, we're exploring how the grace we've received from God should flow through us to others. Extending grace to those around us is one of the most powerful ways we demonstrate that we've truly understood and experienced God's grace ourselves. In Matthew 18:21-35, Jesus tells the parable of the unmerciful servant, a man forgiven an enormous debt, who then refuses to forgive someone whose debt was small toward him. When the king learns of this, he revokes his forgiveness, saying, "Shouldn't you have had mercy on your fellow servant, just as I had mercy on you?" This parable powerfully illustrates that receiving grace creates a responsibility to extend it to others. Think about how irrigation works. Water doesn't flow directly from the reservoir to every individual plant. Instead, the main channel receives water and then distributes it through smaller channels to nourish wide areas. Similarly, God's grace flows into our lives, not just for our benefit, but so that we can channel it to others who need the same refreshment that we've received. So, what does extending grace to others look like practically? First, it means offering forgiveness freely. Ephesians 4:32 tells us, "Be kind and compassionate to one another, forgiving each other just as Christ in God forgave you." When we truly grasp how completely God has forgiven us, it becomes impossible to withhold forgiveness from others, regardless of the offense. Second, extending grace means accepting others without conditions. Romans 15:7 tells us, "Accept one another, then, just as Christ accepted you." Christ didn't wait for us to get our act together before accepting us. Likewise, we're called to accept others as they are, not as we wish they would be. This doesn't mean approving all behaviors, but valuing the person apart from performance. Third, grace leads us to give others the benefit of the doubt. 1 Corinthians 13:7 says, "Love always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres." A grace-filled person interprets others' actions charitably rather than assuming the worst. When someone's words or actions could be understood multiple ways, grace chooses the most favorable interpretation. Fourth, extending grace means meeting tangible needs. In James 2:15 and 16, we're challenged not to merely offer good wishes to someone in need, but to provide practical help. Grace isn't just spiritual or emotional, but materializes in concrete acts of generosity, especially toward those who cannot repay us, reflecting how God has treated us. Fifth, grace requires speaking truth in love. Ephesians 4:15 balances grace with truth. We don't withhold hard truths when necessary, but we deliver them with love, at the right time, in the right way, and for the right purpose. Grace without truth denigrates into enablement. Truth without grace becomes harsh judgment. True grace, like God's, harmonizes both. This week, identify one relationship where you need to extend more grace. Perhaps there's someone you need to forgive, someone whose differences you struggle to accept, someone you've judged harshly without knowing their full story, or someone you've judged harshly without knowing their full story, or someone with a need you could meet. Take one concrete step toward extending grace in that relationship. Also, consider areas where you may be blocking the flow of grace to others. Common blockages include harboring bitterness, maintaining rigid expectations, constantly comparing or extending grace selectively, only to those you deem deserving. Ask God to remove these blockages so His grace can flow freely through you. Remember, we extend grace not from our own limited supply, but from the abundant grace we continuously receive from God. As Jesus taught us in Luke 6:38, give and it'll be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, we poured into your lap. The more grace we extend to others, the more we experience God's overwhelming grace in our lives. Thus, extending grace isn't depleting, but enriching. It's an obligation, a privilege that draws us deeper into the generous heart of God.